Okay, so we're turned on. You can hear me? Okay, great. We will start here momentarily. Hold on. So we're good? Are we on? I can't.
I can't either.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start.
Show me how to press the button.
We'll go ahead and get started here. So, okay, now we'll go on to tonight's presentation, and that again, a couple quick introductions, and then we'll get on to the program. So Jessica Vallia, certified professional photographer, and holds a Master of Photography and Craftsman degrees from PPA. Has many awards. She's got another one here tonight, but awards and accolades from various competitions to include 2023 First Place Class Award with MPI, 2023 First Place Award from ASP, 2023 Platinum and Silver medals at IPC. These are a couple of those are PPA related contests. 2022 Diamond Photographer of the Year, and 2021 Professional Photographers of Colorado Photographer of the Year. Proudly a member of Professional Photographers of America, Vice President and of Professional Photographers of Colorado for the second year, and serves on the board of Professional Photographers Guild of Colorado Springs. She also has a large commercial studio in Colorado Springs, enjoys being able to create gorgeous heirloom boxes and albums and impactful pieces of wall art for her clients. And tonight we'll be able to see some of those. And she also does some instruction in that, what you're teaching one of the pre-con classes down at the Texas School this year. Mm-hmm. And then also one of our instructors we have with Professional Photographers of Colorado, there's a conference first weekend in November down in Colorado Springs, and she'll be one of the instructors at that conference. So now we'll go on to your other presenter tonight is Michael Ryno, which is me. And I'll go through a couple things.
I know, I have your bio somewhere.
Oh.
Hang on, I can introduce you.
Go ahead.
Lone
Speak
my thing since I have it, since I have this up here.
Oh, I thought I had it. Maybe I don't have it.
I'll just go through a couple things of part of this is, kind of what got me into it. So I got my first camera back in 2016 to photograph a lot of the landscapes and that. I do some fly fishing and outdoor hiking and so forth. And it was interesting. When I got the camera and I brought it home and I opened it up, and it's like, well, what is ISO? What's aperture? What's shutter speed? How do you use this thing? So I quickly Googled and found that there was a photo club just a couple miles away from my house, happened to be Lone Tree Photo Club. So that's when I started. Literally, I think I showed up to a meeting here about 3 weeks after I purchased the camera and liked what I saw, liked the people that were here, realized that this would be a great opportunity for me to not just learn that camera, but learn other aspects of photography. So that's where I got my start. So that was 2016, I guess it was. I still enjoy photographing the landscapes, nature. Now, the last couple of years, through some of the programs that I've been to and so forth, some of the workshops and that, I've also taken up an interest in actually photographing people. And believe it or not, I've even recently photographed a couple of weddings and that sort of thing. So would have never thought I would have done that 3-4 years ago. But now that I've done a few, I actually find that I enjoy doing that almost as much as I like doing some of the nature and outdoor photography. Other things that I do, currently the past president, I should say, of Lone Tree Photo Club. That was back in 2020 and 2021. Still really enjoy being active with this group. And then currently I'm also president of the Professional Photographers of Colorado, second year of that. So that was 2022 and 2023. A couple of other things that I've done is through that organization, through Professional Photographers of America, certified professional photographer, and then this year earned my Master Photographer degree. Also write a few articles for Photo Focus when time permits. Haven't had time to do those, even though I retired from my corporate job. I managed to fill my time with these other things, and also actively involved with a couple of other photo communities, including This Week in Photo, Photo Focus, and a couple of others. So that's all about me. So with that, if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of the program, which is the again, the post-processing. If it makes sense, I can go ahead and do a landscape one first, and then I want to make sure that Jessica's are a little bit more involved, so I want to make sure I leave her with plenty of time. So I'll just do one, fairly quickly, and then we'll move on to that. And the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, in that I want to make sure everybody, as I go through the processing of an image that I actually took while I was on a workshop with Darren White here on the Oregon coast down a little bit south of Bandon. As I go through that, I'll kind of be going through some of the way that I process, but the interactive aspect of it is intended to have others, throw out ideas as I'm going through there and so forth. If you see something that can be done better than the way I do it, which I'm sure there's plenty of those opportunities out there, feel free to chime in and offer suggestions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up here. You need to share screen?
Yeah, share your screen. You should have the power.
I don't know about that, but I can share screen anyways. So what I was going to do here real quick is, yeah, do we want to take the lights down? It might make it a little bit easier. I think I can still see what I need to see here. So the ones I pulled up for doing this tonight, and we can kind of pick, the one I thought I would do, like I say, is the one that's down there at the bottom, and that was Port Orford, Oregon. And the other couple that I have here is there was one from Iceland, the Black church there. And then there's another one that people have asked me about. And actually, I learned the technique on that Union Station one from one of our meetings here with the Lone Tree Club a couple of years ago in that. But what I'll do is I'll first start off by doing the seascape one, go through that, and then Jessica will do hers. And then if time permits, I might jump up and just show real quickly a couple of the techniques that were used for that Union Station one.
Michael, can you make your full screen on your green dot?
Yep. Okay. And once I pull it up, I'll try and make sure that it's a little bit more visible. So what I'm going to start off here with is just the raw image that I had. If that is showing up there. And now I just need to move these things out of the way so I can actually see my menus over there on the right. But without, okay, I'll do it like that. It's kind of in my way there, but not yours. So what I'm going to do here is, again, the way I process this one. This is just, again, straight out of camera. Thank you, Darren, for bringing us to this location. It was wonderful that night. And the first things that I will do here is, I'm gonna have to pull this down a little bit because I can't see my upper menu. Is that still good enough? So just because I want to be able to see the develop mode.
If you hold your Alt key down, or Option key, and click on the green one, it won't hide your top menu.
Click on
the green button and the Option. Hold the Option.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to have these menus here. Let's see. So if the first thing I will do here is I'll go into the develop mode, and again, this is just the things that I do and so forth and that. But I'll go into you can see my cursor there, the Adobe Color. I'll just take a look and see what happens if I hit landscape. It usually gives a little bit more color, a little bit more tones in there. So oftentimes I'll do that. And if I do that, then I make sure that I'm real careful, probably not to touch vibrance and saturation later on. For this image, because it's sort of the histogram is pretty far over there to the left, I probably could have exposed it a little bit better in camera, but we can still recover most of that. I'll pull the blacks up a little bit. I'll be pulling the shadows up. And oftentimes I'll still take the highlights down, but just because this image is a little bit darker, I'm going to pull the exposure up a little bit. And Really, I don't do too much more here in Lightroom. I'm gonna do this was I guess a technique Dave Purcell showed us once when he was doing his, but on the sharpening, I'll do the masking. So if I hold the option button down, slide this masking thing across, that way the sharpening isn't being applied to everything. It more or less gets applied to the areas that I want it to without introducing as much noise. Um, Sometimes I will do denoise here. The Lightroom actually now has a pretty good feature on that denoise, but I won't, just for the sake of time. It takes a little while for that to roll through, and I don't think it's important to do that here. But for those, if you're doing your own images in that, feel free to adjust that denoise. The other ones that I will occasionally do is maybe a little bit. I don't touch the saturation slider, not much with the vibrance up above, but I will slide sometimes these sliders down here over on this saturation, a little bit of a red. Sometimes that will richen it up. So really, again, those are fairly basic Lightroom adjustments in that, and it probably isn't too bad as is, but this is where I will take it into Photoshop. And that's where I think I get, some of the things that might be a little bit more unique to it. One other thing I didn't hit up here was on the contrast slider. I'll slide that a little bit to give it a little bit more contrast. About to there. Okay, so now I am going to photo. Hopefully this works here. Edit in, and I'm going to take it over into Photoshop. I'm working with the Photoshop 2024, and this version does have the, I guess, whatever the AI, the fill stuff. It's there, but I don't really use it that much. Let's see if that comes up. Okay, so now we're coming into Photoshop. I may have to do. I wonder if on this one I can do. There we go. First thing I'll do, if it comes up like that, I will hit. Still looks a little bit. I'm still getting. So I didn't want it to do that. I'm going to do this again here real quick, just because it came up different than I wanted it to. Okay, photo. Edit in Photoshop. Okay, here we go. So now it's in there, and I want to fit screen was what I was trying to get to before. So now I've got the different Photoshop menu options here, and that the one that I like to do is that's one menu thing is right there in my way. I will go to the Nick Color Effects Pro. And some of these ones I learned from Darren, and that when he was demonstrating that on the workshop, he gave us some ideas in that using this program. But I will go filter, Nick collection in this case, Color Effects Pro. Okay, good. It's coming up. And then I'm going to kind of show some of what I do with this one here. So I've sort of created my own. They have various recipes. They have a lot of different options for those who haven't used the Nick program before. But the one that the ones I use most often are three of them, and I have them in this recipe. And you can see right here, one of them is brilliance warmth, one is polarization, and one is tonal contrast. I'm going to turn off so you can see what it looks like when it first comes in. The brilliance warmth, and I'm going to hit this little drop down box so you can see where I have the slider set at. But I have saturation just kind of minimal there. I think that's don't have my reading glasses on, but it's 6% or 8%, something like that there. And then the warmth is at 17%. I can always adjust these, move these back and forth if something looks like it's a little bit better, but I tend to go sort of a little bit more muted on. I don't try and overdo it with some of these things. So that's what that brilliance warmth does. The next one is polarization, and this is actually just the the settings that the program has, that it comes with, the standard. I didn't tweak that. I just use that as one of my filters in here. And then the one that really, I think, makes the biggest difference for this is the tonal contrast. So I'm going to open that one up, and you can see it has a set of 4 sliders. The default, when you open up that program and you apply the one that the software provides you with, these are all much more aggressive. I think, most of them are up like 25 to 50% or whatever in terms of that percent. So for my purposes, I've backed these off. I can always go into this and adjust those accordingly. But these are my settings, as I have highlights at 11, midtones at 24, shadows at 17, and then it does have a saturation slider there at 6. And I want to show here again real quickly, like if I turn that, that's on, and this is off. So with it on, you can see what that does. And those are really the filters that I use. Again, with the Nik software, there are plenty of other filters out there, but those are the ones that I use. So now when I hit OK, it's going to bring up, if you look now, we're back, it's bringing me back into Photoshop. You can see here that there's this layer that in Photoshop, it's creating its own layer. Takes a second. And you'll see the difference once that kicks in. There you go. And again, I can toggle this on or off. It looks a little bit more vibrant on my screen maybe than it does up there. But you can see there the toggle, what the Nik products did to it. That's the before, and then that's after. That's what it provided it with. And from there, if I feel that that's too much, oftentimes I'll take this opacity slider and back it down and then move it up to the point where I feel like it looks like it's okay. So with that, I'm gonna stop that part there. What I'm not gonna do on this image, just for the sake of time, I already know there's several dust spots on there. I know Darren will probably, if he takes a hard look at this, he'll pick those out. But there are dust spots, and I can attest to that. I think we all know how to get rid of those. If not, I can show you. I'll do it here real quickly, I guess. Is just with the I'll use the spot healing brush, and I'll go through, and if I see them, one over there, I think, and I'll take those off with that spot healing brush. Now with this, I'm kind of guilty of this, is I oftentimes will flatten the image. So if I hit layer, flatten, that will flatten it there. And the reason is I want to, well, it takes a second. The reason is this is the next part of it, the program that I really wanted to emphasize. So I kind of moved through those other ones pretty quickly. Is I had people asking me a little bit about if I was going to show a little bit of the luminosity masking. And so here it goes. I use this, the TK Actions. This is TK8. I think they've since come out with 9 and maybe even 10, and I just haven't upgraded to those. Just what's available to me on this one here seems to work well enough. But I'm going to hit, and by the way, like within these various TK Action menus, you can see here, there's a lot of different things that you use, and a lot of those are just what I would refer to as more or less Photoshop shortcuts that they have in some of these programs. You can create your own actions there and save them over there. I pretty much use just this one right here, and what it does is it brings up, if you look here at this set of this multi-mask that's down below here, you can see over here what they have is what they call lights 1 through 6, and then over here on the darks 1 through 6. And what I'm going to kind of try and explain what these do. When it first opens it up, the default is this number 1, and what that is if you look, if you look at that, correct. Somebody just here mentioned that it looks like it's black and white, which that's what this mask is. And if I were to go in and start doing some adjustments and so forth, it's going to, anything that is dark will not get adjusted with whatever, let's say I use like a brush, or if I'm dodging and burning and so forth, whatever's dark is not going to be affected by whatever adjustments I'm going to make in this next step. If I move to lights 2, you can see how it went darker. There's less of that portion that's light, and then the next one more and more. So what it will allow me to do, like for this, if I just wanted to affect that part of, say, the sky, the only parts that are showing some light there, I can make adjustments to that. I can get sloppy with moving the brush back and forth, but it's only going to affect those portions that are there. Again, this is the lights 1. Now I'm going to go backwards over into the darks. If I go darks 1, it goes completely the opposite, right? So now if I'm going to make some adjustments, if I wanted to, like, say, dodge some of the darker areas, anything that is showing up, the whitest parts of it are going to get the most of that effect. And then again, as I move further and further down here, I'll be able to just, adjust the sections that are light. Whereas if I were to, run that brush across some of these other areas and that, they won't get affected at all. So what I would do for this, the other part of it I'll bring up too is they have down here, they have like 3 layers of midtones. So this right here would be and this one I do some adjustments to, and I'll show you here real quick what I would do with this. On a lot of my landscapes, I'll start by taking this midtones 2, and then I'm going to apply a curves adjustment to it. You notice I didn't use the curves adjustment back in Lightroom or the initial part of Photoshop. I want to do it. I just want to put my curves adjustment over into the midtones area. So what I'm going to do here is kind of the traditional S curve. So you can see this is kind of bringing up a little bit the highlights, bringing down a little bit of the shadows. And what it's doing is it's just within the midtones making those adjustments. It's not making them to the brightest areas of the scene. It's not making them to the darkest areas darkest areas of the scene. Next, and this is the part I think that helps give it a little bit more contour and depth and dimension, is this is how I would and how I have treated this image. I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to the lights 1 section. I'm not going to use it for any of the sky here. I don't really want to do too much with that. But what I am going to do is try and bring up over here in this mountain area and maybe the other areas of the water. I want to try and bring out a little bit more dimensionality, if that's a word, to those areas. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go. This emblem right here is to burn, and this one right here is to dodge. If I hit dodge, it's going to create over here a whole new layer. And so when this comes up, if you can imagine like what you just saw where the mask was, and there's certain sections that are real white, certain sections that are a little bit darker. I'm going to see if this works on my, here we go. Good, it works. I forgot the stylus right for my Wacom tablet, but Jessica brought a Wacom tablet, and fortunately her stylus works on mine. So we're going to share this thing. So what I'm going to do here on my screen, I've got this one thing kind of in my way. Let me move that. Yeah, there we go. So where I'm going to start with is, and you'll see this effect take place up here with this rock. And I am going to, so I'm on this layer right here, the dodge layer. I've got a white brush, and that's that brush. And where I'm at here is opacity is 100. Now I have the flow at 24%. This is where you could, kind of go crazy with that flow. But for this image, I'm going to keep it at 24%. Actually, what I'll do is, just so you can see it a little bit more visibly, I'm going to push that up a little bit, 51%. And as I go through here and hit these areas that I want to bring out some of the highlights, bring out a little bit more of that light. But again, see how I can get sloppy with it. And as I'm hitting the dark areas, it's not affecting anything that was dark, because that's not part of my mask. And then if I go over here, if I want to bring some of that up, if I go over to this rock, and again, I'm doing this here real quickly, and that just to demonstrate. I'd probably be a little bit more careful if I was trying to sell this image. I'll do a little bit here with like that water that's coming across there. I'm going to take the flow down a little bit. And now I'm going to just kind of do a little bit here, and with the water, give it a little bit more dimension through areas that I want to kind of bring the eyes towards. And what I'm going to do is toggle this back and forth, and you can kind of see if you look at if you look at that rock up at the top, you can see a little bit more dimension that comes through with just what I did right there. But I'm not lightening any of the dark areas with that.
Michael,
yes.
you want to point out lawful an overlay mode there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So over here, meaning that.
Yeah.
that layer that it creates for it is the overlay, right. So it's on, again, it's on its own separate layer. And so what I'm adjusting here is just affecting the things that are on that layer that was created by that luminosity mask that was there. And then, the other thing that I could do too is, and again, I'm not saying that I would necessarily do to this image. I would remove, there's some footprints that are down here and so forth and that. So on other ones, I've done that. But again, for the sake of time, I think we all know how to do that part of it, just with again, the clone stamp tool or the spot healing brush tool. But I'm not going to, again, take the time to do that part of it. But if there's any other areas in here that you want, that again, you want to try and bring the eyes towards, I would do that with it. And the other part of it, on this image, I don't really see any areas that I necessarily need to bring darks and make them darker. But if I did, I would go right into there, make a new layer. And I'm just going to demonstrate it, but I wouldn't necessarily do this. And then I'm going to go to one of those darker masks like this. And then I'm going to go, instead of dodge, I'm going to go to the burn. But if you use the dodge, now you can lighten some of those areas that are, if you feel they're a little bit too dark and you want to bring them up. I'll go ahead and go to the burn layer, or the burn brush. And now I'm going to, and again, I wouldn't necessarily do this, but I'm going to make these things like real dark. You can see that go darker than I would make it, because I just went through the other process of trying to bring out the light on those areas. But if there are some parts of your image that you want to, again, bring out that contrast, you could do that. Like if I wanted to bring more contrast in the areas that I lightened, now I can kind of go back and darken the darks that are beside those and bring out some of that contrast. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through one of the things that Darren demonstrated also in that in one of the previous deals is, I don't know if I have halos in that around. Yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of these halos around this rock. I'll do it real quick.
On the right side more. So.
Yeah, let's see here. Over there's some of these halos. Now, the fact that I already did some of the luminosity masking, I lose, for whatever reason, my subsequent layers don't have all the same effect. I'm going to try and layer and flatten. And this is where it becomes interactive. Derek can tell me if I'm doing this right or not. Okay.
Tell your selection.
Kill the selection.
So change your, okay, so yeah, change your selected on the image.
Okay.
If that's what she's asking. Like deselect. If there's anything selected, deselect it. Okay. So now what you want to do is you want to change your blend mode to darken.
Yeah.
Over above your layers. Where it says normal.
Yeah.
Change that to darken. Okay, and it's not going to do anything, but if you grab the clone tool now and make it probably twice as big as that. I don't know what, I can't see the pixels, but yeah, probably like that. Now, what you want to do is you want to grab an area of the sky.
Yeah.
You got to make, yeah, go out further. You want to give yourself a little bit of room.
Okay.
Yeah. And then change your opacity to probably, let's just do 80% on this one. And then just put your cursor over the edge of the rock.
Okay, my flow is 48%. Is that good enough?
I don't even know what flow is, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So that's something new I've never even messed with. And then just put the cursor over the edge of the rock where the halo is.
Yeah.
And then just click and hold.
So you're grabbing from the sky, or you're grabbing?
You've already grabbed your selection from the sky.
Got it. Okay.
Now just click and drag.
Okay. And I do it slightly differently than this, but the effect is the same. I use it I use the deal from up above, but essentially we're doing the same thing.
Well, if you grab the selection from the rock, then your sky is going to go dark, because the darken blend mode only will apply the clone to the lighter pixels.
Well, all
Right. This should be good for me.
And part of why it's not.
So Mike.
Yeah.
Michael, so just. It's hard for me to tell you what to do without doing it, but
Yeah.
you just want to make it, so right there where you're at.
Yeah.
Alt and select, okay, now move your cursor directly over to the rock.
Yeah.
Over, so that the rock is halfway in the cursor and the sky is half, and now
Okay.
just click and drag along the edge. There you go.
Right.
Now you got it.
Don't keep going up and back, just go over.
Yeah.
You don't have to, and you don't have to keep selecting the
Okay.
sky, it's already selected,
It's
so the selection is following your
Okay.
your brush.
Yeah.
You're using the same selection.
Yeah, you're using it's,
Okay.
I'm just nodding.
yeah,
So, and again, part of it was, and now this is good because I'm learning it too, and that. A little, it's slightly different than the way I did it before, but now I know how I can go ahead and do it going forward in that. But I've been able to get some of that same effect with, like within Photoshop, there's 4 or 5 ways to do almost everything or whatever. And the way that I usually do it is not going over here and using this darken one. I keep that in that, but I use that clone stamp tool, and then I go up here and I use this darken piece right here. I just, you can use darken, normal, light.
it's all the same,
It's the same thing.
Exact same thing.
Okay. Yep. So just a couple different steps or whatever in that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Yeah, stop share. And then I'll bring it back over into Lightroom. And then I might do like with the Topaz, the photo AI, do some of my sharpening or denoise and so forth over that. But like I say, everybody I think knows how to use those things. I just kind of wanted to go a little bit of the main thing I wanted to show was that the luminosity masking there. So I'll go ahead and stop share. Okay. And we'll let Jessica show some of the magic that happens with some of these portraits.
Well, it's gonna look like magic because I am better in Photoshop than I am with my camera. Okay. And it's so dark, so. Oh, I don't know how to
Do you
share.
want
Oh,
do
let's,
you want the light on to get your screen? up
well,
there?
it would help if I actually shared my screen.
You're going to now. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
You're now.
okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I can barely use Zoom as it is. Don't worry about me. Okay. Can you see that? Yep, there it is. And it does look shockingly different up there than it does on what we can see over here.
Yeah. The monitor up there is a little bit flatter, I think, sometimes. Than,
Let me
see.
adjust all of my stuff here. Okay. So when Michael asked me to do this, I was like, oh, we'll take a couple of competition pieces that I've done and won awards on, and we'll deconstruct them. And then I pulled up the Photoshop files and realized that's a disaster because there's about 4 or 5 or 10 different versions of like final for real this time final.
Right.
So we're not gonna do that. Also, when I started clicking layers on and off, I'm like, I don't even know what I did to that layer. Like, I don't even know what that layer was for. It probably wasn't necessary and took me 30 minutes. So some of these competition pieces took me many hours. Again, they were made for competition. They were not necessarily made for clients. One of them was made for a client. This one was not. This one, I just happened to be buying a picture frame actually. And this little girl, the lady who sold me the picture frame is her daughter. She ran out of the house and I was like, oh my gosh, bring her to my studio. So then we did that. And I typically start with some kind of inspiration that was or is a painting. I was a painter and a pen artist before I was a photographer. And so a lot of this translates really well now that I have entered into the digital world. I sort of quit photography when digital came in because I was mad because I had just learned all of the film and I had a dark room and I was like very proud of myself. I was like 23 and I was very proud of myself, and then digital took over. So I came back It's fine. I can do hard things. And I'm also very stubborn. So most of what I've learned, I've either taught to myself or I've watched endless hours of YouTube videos. Many, many, many YouTube videos. If you can't figure out how to do it, probably somebody on YouTube can. So what I've done is I layered all of the different versions, and then we can go through some of the techniques that got us from like point A to point B or point B to point C. And then if you guys have questions in between, we can go over those. There's no way we're going to get in even one of these images from point A to where we ended up. So if that's what you were hoping for, this is not the day. But this one I actually have a recording of somewhere. And I have a tiny tablet and I'm used to working on a huge one. So bear with me. Okay, this is the raw file. And I would also normally start in Lightroom like Michael does and then bring it over. But for time's sake, I didn't do that today. But with this, this was shot so long ago, and I'm actually going to give a shout out to Richard Firth, who's on with us right now. I took his CPP class and had no idea what I was doing with lighting at all. I just would light everything up and hope for the best. So a lot of what I taught myself how to do in Photoshop was how to fix that and add dimension and depth and lighting into the picture after the fact. That's probably the worst possible way to do that because it takes, again, hours and hours. But this is one of the good examples of that. So this one wasn't lit horribly, but like down here, we have so many shadows and it's very dark down here. Her face was lit really nicely for being a little tiny princess. At the time that I shot this, I didn't have my own studio, so I rented a studio space and all they had was a gray backdrop. So even though that wasn't my final vision, it's what we decided to go with. Well, they have that in white and I don't shoot on white, so. And essentially I had this flower crown and I had this bundle of flowers and I'm like, this is what we're gonna go with. And there was an inspiration image for this, but I did not actually pull that up. So we went from here and then my initial edit was like, okay, well, her flower crown doesn't match. This was for a competition. It has to have a story. Like the whole point of these competitions is to tell some kind of story, whether it's a simple portrait or something that's very intricate or a landscape. It really doesn't matter what it is. You want to tell a story. And so the story that I was wanting to tell here is that she has all of these beautiful flowers and that, you know, now she's got some in her hair, and that's why it's called Adorned in Petals. And then we got to at least this point. This was the first version of this image. There is an instructional video on how to make this out on Summerana.com, I think. If I'm remembering things correctly, I was teaching for Summerana at that point. It was just a really simple, like, pop in a background. Some of the things that we did do to get here, though, is you can see that there's, if it'll zoom in, well, this is not the full-size version, but we're going to pretend like it is. There's a ton of light in her eyes. Like, we've started to correct some of those things that could have been done in camera had I known what I was doing with my camera at that point in time. Well, I knew what I was doing with my camera, but with my lighting. So I had not taken Richard Firth's CPP class yet, and I have gotten better at it since then. And you'll have to bear with me without being able to see, because I use shortcuts on my keyboard, and I don't know how to make my keyboard stay lit up. Oh, and I can't, oh yeah, see, I see what you mean, Michael. You can't see the top thing.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
it's so stupid.
that menu that comes in off of Zoom
Yeah,
is blocking my.
We're just gonna go with it. So to get some of this, and this is where it starts looking painterly. So when I go from like just very, very plain photo to painterly, a lot of what's happening is a ton of dodging and burning. But I don't do dodging and burning like even Michael just showed, or like anybody does really. Let's see that. So we're gonna do it on this layer. It's gonna be super messy because we don't have tons and tons of time, and my tiny tablet's not working for me. So we're gonna make a blank layer, and I use all kinds of shortcuts. So if anybody doesn't know the shortcuts or I say them and you already know them, I apologize. I teach a lot of people who have never even opened Photoshop before. And of course, Photoshop just updated today for me because I haven't used my laptop in a while. And so it's going to give me all the tips. But another tip that I learned from actually Richard Sturdivant, who has mentored me in the past, is if you're right-handed, take your toolbar. This is the best tip ever. Take your toolbar that's normally over here and stick it over here. I realize it sounds like it won't save a lot of time, but it actually saves a ridiculous amount of time from dragging across constantly. You can just drag it over. I'm not going to demonstrate because I'm not going to mess it up today.
And you notice mine, I'm right-handed and mine was over on the left side. So
For the first 20 years of photoshopping things, I drug everything across. And he came in and did a class for PPGCS, and the first thing he taught us was if you're right-handed, drag your, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, why didn't I think of that kind of moment? So, and then on here, so I don't use, there's a lot of ways to do dodging and burning. One of them is to use various blending modes with a gray layer. I don't do that because it feels like the shadows end up going really gray. So I actually use a blank layer and I put my blending mode to multiply. Multiply is going to make everything darker. So for instance, if I grab a color, any color, doesn't really matter. And if I'm on 100% and I just, like, it's going to make it dark, but you can still see through it, see? So we still have that see-through effect, but it's the color that it's supposed to be. That is obviously not where we're going with this. And I can't quite see all the things. Okay. And when we do this, I do this on a very low opacity, like maybe 10%, sometimes lower than that, honestly. And ladies who wear makeup, this will maybe resonate more with you than it will the guys, but we're just gonna hit up the spots that one would normally contour on a face. Makeup contouring has become a huge thing. So anything that looks too bright, we could go in and just really easily darken. Part of what I'm trying to do when I'm doing this is we want the focus to go to the face. So ideally this area should be the brightest area, and then all of the light should fall off, which we'll see in the versions that progress. And so we're just going to add some depth to her face. And now that I know what I know about lighting, thank you, Richard, I can do this without using Photoshop for all of it. So my life has become so much easier. I literally couldn't live without that man. And then again, like little kids often have like no eyebrows. So we're going to just darken those up a little bit. And these are really nitpicky things that judges will get you for all the time, like every single solitary time, the number of things. And I'm actually going to tell you guys what the judges picked apart, besides the judge that we had last week who also picked it apart. And that's fine. I love when judges pick my stuff apart. See, and now I've gone over to the green, and we don't want to do that because it's going to make the green look muddy because it's not green. And I just couldn't see where I was at. So I'm going to come in and just erase it off of there. But because everything is done on its own color, this does take a bit longer, but your colors are going to stay very true. And this is where that painterly look comes from, because in a painting, it's all done with color. There's not a whole lot of grays and dull things going on. Up there, it's not going to lend well to it. If anybody wants to see any of these after, we can do that too. And then alternatively for dodging, I'm going to make another blank layer. I'm going to come up here to screen, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to pick a color. I actually tend to stay away from the brightest color of the face, and I go with a mid-tone. And I'm going to pick something, and then I'm going to hit up where her highlights are. And that's, yep.
How are you using your color picker that you're not having to
Oh, you hold the Alt button.
Okay, thank you.
If you hold down the Alt button, you can do all the colors in the world. And it's just going to change that foreground color. There's probably a way to change the background color, but I don't know what that is. No, the shortcut.
Figure out how to get to it.
In 20 years of Googling, and Richard and a couple other people, actually, I've learned a couple of shortcuts that I'm like, oh, like the brackets. So I can make my brush big and small with the little brackets, which that took me about 10 years to figure out. I did everything the hard way because why wouldn't you? And often I go way overboard on the highlights and then bring the opacity down. And without constantly zooming in, this could take all day. I also should have brought us the full size file. It's been a long time since I've looked at this file and I did not realize I didn't bring it. And one of the things that naturally happens with eyes is wherever this highlight is, wherever the light is hitting the eye, your eye is a sphere. I don't know the whole science behind it, but that means that light is going to reflect back on the other side. If that light isn't there, it tends to look very flat and very dull. And I lightly just hit those up like that. Again, if this was for this client or competition, like Michael said, we would spend way more time on it. I also can get super lost just sitting here, like painting essentially. And then throughout the course of this, I would have about 4 or 5 various layers of these dodge and burn layers because it just, oh, stupid bar. The zoom bar is killing me.
All right.
Yeah, it's fine. We're gonna get through it. And then just even that little bit, I'm just gonna stick them in a group so we can turn them on and off. The highlights are way too bright though, so let's turn those down a little bit. So we're gonna bring the highlights down even more.
Just with the opacity on that whole layer.
Yeah,
right?
on the whole
With that,
layer.
right.
Yep. And this is why I end up going way too far in the beginning. By the time that we're towards the end, and that's why I couldn't tell what layers are what. I'm refining teeny tiny little details that I am probably the only person who has ever seen because I have zoomed into almost every single pixel of this picture. But then we have all of that depth and dimension that we were lacking before. Again, very sloppy though. So that was this is like the first round of edits when I did this, and this is obviously far more detailed. I did replace the background. I think this one was from Summerona, so this is not one that I painted. And my cutting out process is horrific, so we're not even going to go into that. There must be a better way. But then this one, it went through competition. It got a ton of positive comments and then a ton of negative comments that there's so much negative space here in the flowers and there should be more flowers here and her arms look funny and I'm like, have you ever worked with a 2-year-old? Like, come on. I'm not really should figure out who said that because I'm like, she's 2. Like, but that's fine. I can deal with criticism. And I went back and as a family photographer, I am a master at replacing body parts. I replace body parts on people all the time. It is not simply head swaps. And so the second version of this, I had another picture where she was looking up at her mom and her mom was half in the picture. She was fixing the crown, but her arms were perfect. And so I swapped them out.
Did you toggle back and forth all the time?
Mm-hmm. There was many other changes made, but that was the major change there was, okay, well, if you don't like her arms, I got new arms. I have 4 arms. Yeah. And as far as judges go, like mom loves this picture and so do I, and I would deliver this to a client all day long. As far as judges go though, they prefer this arm. And the times that I've yelled at my screen about arms and fingers and things, it's probably embarrassing. And this is when I started working on this. So this one went through our state competition at PPC, and then this one went through ASP maybe, and then it went all the way up to IPC, and it was in my loan case. And I got very, very details. I changed the style so much. I wanted people to second guess whether this was a painting or whether this was a photograph. And I can demonstrate some of that too. So let's turn, and that's why I included all these layers so we can kind of turn them off and then see how we got from point A to point B. All right, so on here, this is where, I don't know if you guys are familiar with mixer brushes. We're gonna see.
It wasn't a year ago,
loaded.
but now I know a little bit about it, right?
So a mixer brush is very much like a paintbrush, right? But a digital paintbrush. And so it'll load paint and it will mix paint and you can add color. And again, I don't understand the science and I'm not going to pretend like I do. Now we have to clean our brush and make sure. Okay. So we're on the mixer brush. If you pull down your brush menu, and I think this is pretty standard since it just updated, it's underneath your paintbrush all the way at the bottom. If it's not, then you have to still come in and load it. It doesn't come preloaded on the photography workspace. You have to load it specifically. And then up here, technically you can take any brush in here and make it a mixer brush. I have brushes that I've purchased from Richard Sturdivant. If you guys don't know him, he's a fantastic painter in real life and in Photoshop. And he actually does a ton of paintbrushes for wildlife painting. So if you see here, these all say wildlife painting. I don't shoot wildlife, but I use them on my people. And so I have one in particular, it's called this oil bristle. And on here, this is gonna make everything, like Lord knows what the settings are because I can't actually see it. Nope, I still can't see it. Yeah, so we're at wet 20%. And again, that's to think about it in relation to actual paint. So if you had a brush that was wet, but not completely like soaking wet, that's going to be where we're at. I don't usually mess with the load or the mix, whatever the brush setting is, I kind of leave it at that unless there's something very specific that I'm doing. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm pretty messy. And this is how I would actually do this, pretty messy. Come in and like, we'll see how slow this is on this laptop. And it's going to mix everything up and look really ridiculous at first.
Can you
Yep.
do that?
Oh, yep.
Yep.
Yep. I can't see what you guys are seeing. Oh, yeah. And I went over her eyeball because why wouldn't I?
So it just mixes the colors.
It mixes all the colors. Oh, you know what? This is funky because it is mixing the colors. I don't want it to add color and it is adding color. And I can never remember which of these buttons. One of these will turn that off. Clean brush. So when it's on load brush, it's going to take your foreground color and it's going to load your foreground color at certain percentages into whatever you're mixing. So if my foreground color was purple, it will start loading purple into that. I just want to mix whatever's right here on the palette in front of me.
And does it mix like where you first start to grab in with the
Mhm.
other ones?
Yeah, so it's
Blending
kind of
that.
similar to the smudge tool. So you guys have used, I don't know who's used smudge tool. Sandra Pierce teaches with smudge tool.
Right.
And that I don't love as much. The way she does it though, it looks amazing. And I just cannot get it to work the same way that she does. But essentially when you grab the smudge tool, wherever you start to pull is
Okay.
where it will. And that effect is not going to be nearly as cool up there as it is over here. And then I come in on the curves of her hair, which there's another setting that should be clicked down and it's not, I can't see it. Right here, this little bullseye button, that is going to move the cursor the way, so like if I, oh man, see, I hate when Photoshop updates because then nothing works. I knew I should have played with the computer before coming to. I totally broke my computer at my studio the other day, so. Let's make sure it doesn't do it again. Nope, still doing it. Turn off. For real. Okay. And I would come through on the curves of her hair, and this is all, I mean, this is painstaking, right? Like this is not for somebody who does not want to Photoshop or essentially paint. I will sit and actually paint some of these after the fact. So with actual paint and embellish them. And this is where a lot of the painterly look ends up coming in. And it's just going to look smudgy at first. And we're just going to, oops, don't click the button. And even this area right here, there was clearly some pink overlay from when I redid the background. And so the pink's gonna show, and I will show you how I will fix that, because I probably had to actually fix it on the file. Because these are my JPEGs of my actual working files. This image was one that taught me a lot of things about Photoshop, because I learned to go from just barely painterly to like a full on, like this may or may not be a painting. And when this is printed, it does look like it's a painting. Okay, so while that's a little smudgy, I would bring the opacity down. I just pretty much overdo everything and then bring it down. That might be too much. And then I'm gonna make another layer. I'm gonna grab a regular brush, and there's another great brush in here. And I'm on a regular paintbrush again. And it's a sketching brush, so it's more like a pencil. And I'm going to change my blending mode to screen. And we're gonna add some details back into her hair. You can do both screen and multiply and add shadow details back into her hair too, but we cannot do all of the things tonight. And we're gonna grab a color. So in this case, I'm gonna grab a really bright color of her hair. I'm gonna find something that's super bright. I don't know what my opacity is at, so we're gonna stick it at 80. Also, another great shortcut, if you hit the button, the number buttons on the top of your screen or your keyboard, it'll change the opacity. So like if you hit it 2, it'll take it to 20. And if you hit 8, it'll take it to 80. And once we've done that, oh, that is too big. We can literally come back in here. If I could see my cursor, I can't see it. And then I would come in and repaint hairs back in. I have some kind of crazy lag going on though. So you guys just will have to believe me. And yes, I literally sit here and paint hair after hair after hair. And then eventually it does end up looking like this. And I paint in dark hairs too. And I do this on everything all the time. So even my family portraits, I will go in and take all of the flyaways out. But if you've ever seen really bad Photoshop pictures that looks like plastic people with plastic hair and it looks kind of like they're Legos, I will go back in and draw in tiny little natural hairs on every single girl's head, even if there's like 4 or 5 of them, and make sure that like you should naturally have flyaways. I think you can go too far in processing, even if you're going to be painterly. So there's tons of little hairs all in here still, because you want those. You don't want to take everything away. Some of this process is taking it all away just to then later bring it back. Let's zoom back out. Oh, that was too far. Yeah, sorry guys. I had like it's doesn't like zoom is where
There's
I'm
a
at.
delay always.
Oh, yeah.
with the-
Yeah, I know.
the Zoom. Right, right.
I'm like shockingly bad at Zoom. You would think after this many years of being on Zoom that one would get used to it, but I really didn't. And then another thing that I ended up doing here was filling in these flowers. That was a horrible process because you can't have anything that looks identical to the, like they can't look like duplicates, because the judges will pull those out in an instant and be like, oh, there's a clone stamp. So I actually had to re-photograph these flowers in a different variation and start all over and try to get the lighting exactly the same and then put them back into her hands. But one of the things too that, and Darren had asked me about it. What was your question exactly, Darren? So that I make sure I'm not.
I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Beyond what you were expecting, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the, and I think the question had to do with that matte finish.
But I see that here. so
Yeah.
don't-
Well,
you know.
and some of the finishing, because I don't, oh yeah, we weren't there. Some of that too is I come down here to my little layers. I'm going to grab a solid color. In this case, I do think it was a pretty warm color. Lord knows what color it was. And I have a solid color now. I'm going to change the blending mode to that to soft light or overlay. No, soft light. And I'm going to bring that way down. And some of what that does is just takes, because this is it's technically a composite, right? Like these flowers were not really on these flowers and this backdrop was not really there. When you take a top layer like this and put it into a different blending mode, you kind of make something that wasn't cohesive before now come together and be one cohesive piece. And then I'm going to take a big black brush. Maybe I'm on a pencil, which won't work for this. I'm going to take a big, round, soft black brush. Like 20%. And I'm going to start to take it off of her face a little bit. You don't want it to affect the skin tone, but you do want it to look cohesive. And we'll wait for Photoshop to catch up with us. It's thinking about doing it. There we go. And then you can play with that opacity a little bit more. And it's a great way to do a vignette without actually putting something very heavy on the piece. And anytime you do a vignette, the point of doing it is to take your subject and make your subject pop while the rest of this is going a little bit darker into the shadows. You don't want it to be completely in the shadows, but you don't want it to be, you don't want everything to be just as bright as her face, because you want your eye to naturally go to her eyes. And if everything is super bright like it was way down here, you really don't know. Oh, that's not the ring. I went the wrong one. You really don't know where to look. Like there's not a huge, I mean, there's a focus because there's a kid here and she's looking at the camera. But by the time we've gotten up to here, your eyes go directly to her eyes. It's the brightest spot on the whole image.
Can you toggle on and off the solid color layer that you just masked out?
Solid.
Yeah, just the one right below it.
This one? Oh yeah. Well, I have to turn these back on. There we go. And I don't have it at a very high opacity. Or maybe did I turn it all the way down? Not quite.
Okay.
Is it toggling?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. It's harder to see on there than it is over here.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that I do in outdoor photos. I do this in indoor photos. I use this more indoors than I do outdoors. I think outdoors, because you're in that natural setting, it's not like I'm cutting people out of their backgrounds for the most part, although Michael might beg to differ if he's seen me do it. For the most part, I'm leaving people where they are when we're outdoors. I shoot a lot on gray because of this image and replace the background with whatever I feel like making, simply because I can. It's probably not the easiest way to do it. And then we end up with something like this. This has a ton of dodging and burning though. One other thing that I was going to show too, which we can show on here. Let's turn this one off. Another good trick for, we're gonna make a blank layer and then bring the mode down to color. Color is fantastic, especially when, and this is one that would translate over into landscapes a lot, because when you're wanting that painterly look, you want certain colors to pop and you don't necessarily want all of them to pop. So if you put a brush on color, and let's just pick a ridiculous color. Let's go super pink at 100%. We could take this and it's not going to change the density of anything. It's simply going to change the color. So this I use to like pop little girls' cheeks, add color to lips. And you're able to do that using the colors that are already in your image so that it's not looking fake. I do come in and usually brighten it up, either brighten it or bring up the saturation. And I do it on super low opacity. But then you can come in and kind of spot pop whatever colors you want to. That was something I had to do on these flowers because they weren't shot all at the same time. So these ones, it's the exact same flower, ended up looking like different color than these ones, because I ended up shooting this section in my house, I think, without any studio lights. Like I just put them in front of the window and
The colors on her laptop screen that are a lot better than they
Yeah.
are on the wall.
What we're seeing over here is
Yeah.
far different.
So washed out. These calibrations.
Oh, yeah. Well, this isn't even calibrated, though it doesn't look as bad as.
Yours look good compared
Yeah.
to that.
And then that's something like if you turn them on and off, it's a real easy, it's also a great way that if you have super dark shadows, oh, come on. Let's cooperate slowly. So we've got some shadows down here that are turning super muddy and gray. If you grab a color and when it's in the darker shadows, you have to be at a very low opacity. You can kind of take those grays and paint them away. That was too far, but, and then you can just bring down the opacity. These are really, really nitpicky little things, but if you are going to compete in competitions and submit how the judges see them so quickly, I have no idea. But within a matter of seconds, most judges can be like, well, that girl's face is like 12 different colors. And most people have variations in their skin as far as the colors in their skin. Outside of cheeks, though, what judges are looking for is very even toned skin. So like even in here, this went really gray. And then right here, I clearly painted over something with pink because why not? So you can grab just a little brush and it's a mid-tone, so you can bring up the opacity and you can kind of just paint that right off. And then the pink will go away. These are great tips that I learned fixing things I could have done the easy way. But there's at least one. So we went from here, if we can turn that back on. I'm going to end up doing it wrong again. Let's zoom out. And then the final result, finally for IPC, and it did receive a loan. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. It's what you're aiming for is to get a loan. So it was published in their book to here. And I've won a couple of awards with this one, which made me really proud because I learned so many things while making this piece.
And like here, you have like this many layers. Like,
Oh, yeah, it's like,
and some of these have been condensed, right? I mean,
oh, it's been
the-
so
The
condensed.
number
So
of layers that you have.
Yeah,
you said that,
because I was going to bring the actual file and then I realized it's not a file, it's like 10 files. And I couldn't figure out which final version was the actual final version. So I went through and just layered them as we progressed. I was like, oh, well, this one was clearly here. And then this, oh, that's when I replaced her arms. And I went through and just sort of, I condensed those so that you guys didn't have to see the crazy, you should have seen some of the crazy layers too. Like at one point, she had like 5 different layers of dress here while I tried, replacing her arms was the hardest thing I've ever done in Photoshop in my entire life. So the fact that it worked and it looked flawless when I was done, I was like, okay. But that probably took me like many hours, like 5, 6, 7, 8 actual hours of sitting here trying to replace her arms. Again, I don't suggest it unless you're trying to get a loan piece. But I wouldn't do that for a client. That's not something that I would normally do.
If they paid you to do it.
If they paid me to do it, yeah. If the mom, but that mom would have never nitpicked this baby's arms and been like, I don't like her arms. In fact, mom bought this one and loved it. And so did I when I first made it. That's why there's an editing video with the first version for another company. But I love this. And this kind of brought me into the style that I've been creating. This one's 3 or 4 years old now. So I've been honing these skills, but this was one of the pieces that I learned so many things from doing this.
I even like it cropped in where you just said,
Mhm.
you sit in there and just.
Yeah, the crop,
Flowers.
the only reason I have the crop like this, Phil, is because that's what the judges like.
Yeah, no.
They want the rule of thirds.
You know, that rule of thirds,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
cropped in. I know, like that's
Yep.
cute right there, but those judges, they like that rule of thirds, and I get it. And some of that's just, you know, knowing what the judges like and what they don't, and knowing when to break the rules and when not to. This one works well for that because there's so many flowers that this negative space works. But yeah, she's so cute. There are 3 of them that look like this too. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. I need to photograph all of them. I haven't seen the baby yet.
So did you make your own background or?
In this case, I did not. I brought another one and I did make my own background. This one, I initially did the editing video for another company and I used their background.
So did you outline her, to put her, you know, and then put
In
her
the new
into
background?
or?
We could try it. So, and I'm really just so messy when I do backgrounds. I actually have another company cut them out for me now because I just don't care. I know that you can be really precise about this. I just feel like I have better things to do with my time than cut people out.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
If I heard you correctly, you said you don't shoot on white backgrounds.
No, because I end up getting so many halos. And I shoot a lot of things low key anyway. So white just never, it just does not speak to
White
me.
make it easier to cut out.
Maybe, Darren, that's a good point that I did not think about before.
I know absolutely nothing about
It's like when you shoot on a white background, depending on where you're putting your light, you may get some light spill. Like if your light hits the background, it's now gonna hit this stuff back here, like her hair. And so it kind of depends on what you're going for. Honestly, when I shot this, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know a whole lot about lighting. I just knew that I needed her to be well lit and that I could fix it later in Photoshop.
So long as you keep her away from the background and don't light
Yes.
the background, it's
Then-
gonna be gray anyway.
Yeah,
right?
then it's gonna be gray regardless, yeah.
Is that what you use, shoot, is that color, like, that gray?
I do use this gray often, yeah.
They're 18% gray.
Yeah. And that I use mostly, I do a lot of compositing, even if it's something simple like just taking out the background and replacing it with a painted background. Though I have found a trick that if you use any painted background, it's way easier to blend in. I think I recorded a video for a class that Michael was in on that. It's way easier to blend painted to painted, even if it's a different color with various techniques, than it is to try to do like this one where it was just a stark gray background and then changing it out. But essentially for this, I would select and mask her. This is gonna be the worst. Oh, that is not it. I need to select subject first. We can do that in here. Photoshop is usually pretty, oh, it's gotten better than it was before on selecting and
Yeah,
masking, and that
the
was not
selection thing
terrible.
is, yeah.
That wasn't bad. I'm not sad about that. Again, some of this is just I've gotten lazy and don't care anymore. Like I would rather sit and paint tiny hairs in all day than cut people out. And there's a great company, it's called Rebook You. They're like $1 a piece and they have the most accurate selection ever. So
That's because they know exactly how to do it. It only
Yeah.
takes them about 10 seconds.
it probably does take them 10 seconds. I don't care how they do it. It's just so amazing. And it's for volume photographers and I only send them like 2 or 3 at a time. And they still somehow. Okay, so we can still see that there's a bunch of gray. Whether that's gonna work or not, no, I don't have any of my settings on correctly. I'm not on the right tool. So if we have this little hairbrush tool over here, I don't know what it's actually called. Refine Edge, okay. I make up my own names on things. Michael's
Aaron
just,
Hayes does have a great video on masking around stray hairs.
oh, there it goes. Oh, he sure does. He has a great library, period. I've learned half of what I've learned from Aaron.
Do you have the cloud cutout, or do you have?
No.
just the normal?
No, I just have the normal cutout on. I don't even know about that. I don't push the new buttons in Photoshop. I know what you're talking about. But it freaks me out because every time I do something on Photoshop that doesn't work, like I break my computer. I actually had to delete Photoshop the other day and reinstall it and I forgot to save my presets and my brushes and all the things, so now we're here, you guys. That's where we're at now. That's a terrible selection, but that's what we're gonna go with. Oh, we would need a background, huh? So let's put in a background file. Let's hope that I have something in here. Place embedded is how I do this. There's again 1,000 different ways to do this. We're about to see all the things. So here's some examples of my inspiration photos for upcoming pieces. I just save paintings and look at them and dream about things I could do with them.
What was the name of the company that did the
Um,
cutouts?
That does what?
The cutouts.
The cutouts Rebook You. It's REEBOU. I don't know. There's a U, there's a K. I thought I saved something on here. Might not have a background on here. Let's see. It's possible there aren't any. Why are there none?
Do you
Oh.
usually just keep them on a hard drive?
I do usually keep, well, I don't usually edit on this laptop. This is my teaching laptop and I do not have my other hard drive. Oh, but I have all kinds of things from Summerana in here. Okay, this might be good. So Summerana is a tutorial based program. We have tons of tutorials and things. And I was teaching for them for a short period of time. And then just got very busy with PPC. Oh, I don't have any of those. I have some really weird stuff in here that probably is not going to go well. Like frogs. Well, oh, studio backdrops. Let's just,
There we go.
there we go. There's a pink one. It's not the one, but we're gonna go with it. Maybe. Nothing's happening. It shows it in there. Oh, because we don't have, never mind. Never mind, because we didn't do it the right, I didn't do it, any of this in the right order. And of course I still can't see. So now we're gonna select our subject. I should have hit the layer mask button. So we're no longer going to refine our edge because we're just not going to. Oh, I can't see. The not being able to see, I'm sure there's a way to fix that where it's
Yeah,
not so
that-
awkward. I just don't know
That
what it
was,
is.
it was getting me when
Yeah.
I was doing mine.
And I'm just gonna make a layer mask on it automatically and bam, we have a layer mask, right? But then this would need so much refining and this background is way too bright. So what I would end up coming in here and doing is putting a layer in between these two where we're gonna bring up a levels. I hate curves adjustment. There's nothing wrong with it. I just like levels better. So I come in here and use, whoops, wrong way. Levels adjustment. Again, it's one of those things where there's 1,000 ways to do something. And then I would bring down the highlights. Because most of what we're seeing is that there's a ton of highlights in here. This is a terrible backdrop. This is not the one, but we're going to pretend like it is the one. Ideally, I would have brought the full file, but you guys would have been horrified and like, oh my gosh, why do you do that? Even I was a little horrified. I haven't looked at the file again in a very, very long time. It's been a very long time. And then the other thing I would do, so this level looks great here. Another way to bring the center to the face is to make another blank layer, bring that back to multiply again. We're going to pick one of these dark pink colors the old fashioned way and a huge brush. I am not on a brush. And just paint. Oh, we're on 100%. Let's go to like 30%. And we're going to bring that down in a second too. And bring that way down. So again, some of these are just techniques that you could take and bring the focus back to where she's at versus this gray, terrible backdrop that we had going on here. Oh, we cut it out. We don't have it anymore. It is there, but well, now we have white, yeah. But are there any more questions on this one? With our very fast crash course of painterly things.
That's an online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have to figure out how to stop sharing, right?
Stop share, is that
Oh,
red? right
okay,
there.
I'm like, that's right. Okay. I didn't want to.
Yeah, yeah, let's go ahead.
Oh, gosh.
I have this, regular tablet, I still use the mouse.
Mhm.
And so again, that was,
What is it?
It's a Wacom tablet.
Oh, welcome.
Mhm.
and this is one also, this is like the medium size. Others use you use the Wacom tablet also in that. but,
This Painterly thing is impossible with a mouse. I mean, you can, but you will have carpal tunnel in a couple of days. So I don't suggest it.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and when I was doing some of that luminosity masking, and again, on that luminosity masking, I went real quick
Yes.
with the way I do that. But normally I would spend a lot more time, and with this, I can get things a lot more precise and more strokes or whatever in that, and pressure sensitivity and so forth on those and that.
If you just put your mouse in a drawer for 2 days and do some edits, just 2 days. Right. But then you'll know. And like now I almost can't, I have a hard time going back and forth between my mouse and my pen because I very naturally want to use the pen for everything.
Do you use your mouse like for other things, like
Mhm.
surfing and whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just, it's driving me crazy.
It took me a long time. Again, being very stubborn, I really didn't want to learn anything new. I hate learning new things. Once I'm there, I'm good. But I just don't want to, I want to do it the way that I know how to do it. And when I know that that's not serving me well and I have to learn something new, I just have to kind of force myself. So I put my mouse away for several days and didn't use it at all. And now I can seamlessly go back and forth, but it took a couple days. It's not too bad.
You still use a mouse?
Yeah, but not for editing. I don't use a mouse for editing.
Do you, on your Wacom pen, do you use I've seen, like things that you can slide on to make it better? Because I
Oh.
found that, even the large pen that I have, I guess I'm starting to get old and that arthritis is.
Yeah, sometimes like when I'm doing competition pieces, my wrist will hurt so bad if there's a lot of tiny little hairs that I've been working on. Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't use that though.
I don't remember who I saw selling them. You know how like for regular emails, you can get like the little.
Like the little, yeah.
It was something similar to that with the Wacom pens.
Mm.
You know, and.
I wonder if they sell.
Amazon, I'm
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
I'm just not.
But my wrist health has improved dramatically after forcing myself 3 or 4 or 5 years ago now, I can't remember, into use. I owned one for about 2 years in a drawer and never touched it. I gave it to one of my kids recently. So it was ancient.
That's frustrating.
Well, and I, when I first got the Wacom tablet, this was my thing was, I didn't do that, force yourself, put the mouse away and do that. And so the Wacom tablet sat there for like a year and a half of not being
Yeah.
used until.
One of
right,
the
right.
groups needs to have a Wacom tablet session, right? Everybody brings your tablet and somebody teaches everybody how to use the tablet and you all sit there and work on things using the tablet.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing. I had it for years just sitting in a drawer and I didn't touch it at all.
Yeah.
Like I bought expensive things and put them in a drawer. So let's not be those people.
Right. I've done that.
Yeah.
I have one,
Mhm.
I have small.
Michael,
Oh.
I have a big one.
I have a big
Want me to
one.
do that one real, do we have,
Yeah.
I can do it real quick.
The downtown one
Yeah.
with the, yeah.
Want me to-
that's it.
okay,
I see that
okay.
one.
I will do it real quick, but it's not going to be, it won't be final version, but I'll just show the, and on this, I'll pull it up here real quick. I have to share screen. Yeah, I'll do it. And Darren suggested one time that I go out and actually record and show how to do it. And I'll do that and share that with people too. But for the purposes of tonight,
I think you're still around, Ed Canals.
yeah, we do. Yeah, for those that want to see the where I learned it from, and that Ed Canal,
Use Photoshop, right?
a photographer, architectural photographer out
all
of
the
Florida, he presented to the Lone Tree Club, and we still have the recording out there. That is where I got that from.
Which version did you start with?
And it's made.
So I'll do this pretty quickly.
I don't,
Yeah, like that.
20 years, yeah. Like,
After version three.
I mean, that might be where it was.
That's one of the part of the package. Or our- Yeah, I didn't even know whether to put it.
And what I'll end up doing, you want the lights on or off? You want them on or off?
If you want, or you can instead of somebody else on it.
Mhm.
So then instead of calling phone.
Oh.
That's where I'm starting.
No,
So since we don't have a lot of time, I'm gonna roll through this one here really quickly, but see if I can remember how to do all this. I did it earlier this morning in that, but the idea is to go from this to something like this. The other one that I have is.
this is my favorite of
it's-
Michael's images.
and these are both the
So
same photo. So this is in camera, and I'm gonna go through here real quickly. And yeah, literally it's a Lightroom preset that I can share with you here in a second. But anyways, I'll take this. I will go into develop mode. I will, and this is the key to this. And again, I'm not going to be real precise with this. This is just kind of just showing how it gets done. Take, what did I do? I didn't even touch any of these sliders to begin with. I go to what, the masking tools and so forth that are within Lightroom. And these are also in Photoshop, Camera Raw, right? So, you could do the same types of things over there in that too. I go sky, and then it's going to create a mask of the sky, right? This green. And again, you can fine tune that better than what this thing is coming up with. And I recommend doing that. And I will take the exposure down on that sky about there. And then I'll create a new mask, and it's also going to be select sky. So the same thing, but now I'm going to invert it. Let's go. So this is everything but the sky, right? And I'm going to bring up the exposure on that. And you can, up the exposure, maybe up the shadows a little bit, do a couple of different things with that. Again, this isn't going to be perfect. And literally that's pretty much all I'm doing in Lightroom. Maybe the only other thing, I say that until I hit this next preset button. But, I might do the, what we talked about earlier, the Dave Purcell technique of, where were we? The sharpening. Does this all look different?
You do a sky reflections.
I don't do much sky replacements. And this one I don't, when you just saw that, that's not a sky replacement. This is
Yeah, no.
same sky, but it's going to look quite a bit different here in a second. Here, I know what it is. Okay, so I go like that. I won't even do the sharpening thing or whatever. Now let's move things along here. So these are the when Ed Canal gave his presentation, he didn't create these presets. He bought them from somebody else. I think it's Joe Giannosto or something like that. I'll have to look up the name and I can share that with people later on. And that I think it was $30 to buy his presets, and it comes with 5 of them. There's one that you use here, and it's called, it's funny here, Street Tones Saturated. And that doesn't look good at all, does it? Right? But that's the preset that, let's see, Street Tone Saturated. Okay, so you apply that preset to it. And now here's the key to this thing is you go to your white balance picker and you go to something that is like a bluish tone. And it's going to come out different depending upon what tone you go with. You hit that, and there it came up with that. And look at what it did. Like the temperature, it brought it all the way up to like almost 11,000, right? It brought that temperature way up. That still looks a little bit dark up there. It's a little bit dark here. So I'm going to still, and even on my histogram that I'm looking at, it's a little bit dark. So I'm going to bring up the exposure, but maybe take down the highlights so that that orange, it's not popping quite as much. There's another step here that's key to it, and that is, and what I'll do is I'll go through, if you look here, look at how drastic with that preset, where some of these sliders are at, right? He actually takes contrast down. He has a little bit of changes in whites and blacks. I would maybe push the blacks up a little bit to not make it also dark. But look at like his curve, right? He's pulled on his curves layer. He's got points in these different places, and I'm sure those are strategically placed there for whatever reason. But then look at even just like the hue sliders moved all the way across, green way up there. I would never think to do any of those kind of things, right? Same thing with saturation. He's taken yellow all the way out, green all the way out, and adjusted a few of those other ones. Same thing with the luminance. So somebody put some thought into where all of those things go. And really not that much other than that, but really that was just presets. It still doesn't look great up there. It still looks, there's more saturation here that's showing on my screen. Couple other things here I'll do real quickly in Lightroom is when I talked about those masks, I'm going to add, and this is, he had demonstrated this too. And he was a little bit more precise with this, but I'm just going to show you what you can do. I'm going to go radial gradient and just kind of hit like a couple of areas that you want to bring the eyes to a little bit. Let's see here, adjust that a little bit like this. Maybe take this. Again, this is going to be a little bit sloppy, but I'll take that and push the exposure up a little bit. You kind of see some light now hitting that part of that building. And maybe another one, radial gradient. And you can use different gradients or whatever in that. Maybe you want to put a little bit of light over here. Same thing, I'm just pulling the exposure up, but you can do different things. That way, at least it kind of brings a little bit of attention over to that side. You could do that with other parts of it also.
Yeah, as long as because you got the bright side of the sky on the right side, so obviously the light would be shining.
You want to make sure that it's coming over.
You wanna make sure that
It would look odd if you, it would look odd if you came over here and made that look like, how is it, where's it coming from? So you're right. Good point that Darren, good point that Darren just brought up is make sure you're kind of paying attention to direction of light and where the.
Sky replacements don't pay attention to the foreground, so then they put a sky in the. I just wrote a whole blog on this today, so.
Okay. We'll look forward to seeing that. The next step that what Ed Cannell did not necessarily do and that I do on these things is a step that we showed earlier, and that is I'm going to go a file, wait, hold on a second, photo, edit in, I hate that thing right there, photo, edit in Photoshop, and it's just going to be that Nick Color Effects Pro, and I'm using the same kind of preset that I had in the other one. So here's where I am. I'm going to go. Where am I at? Yeah, make sure I'm on there. Filter, Nick, and Color Effects Pro. And I already demonstrated what this is, but it's going to open up that same set that I have there. Again, on this computer, it changed it dramatically by bringing that in compared to what it was. I'm going to hit OK. As soon as that renders or whatever you call that, what it looks like up there. Okay, again, the changes are more dramatic here on my computer than what was there. But there again, and I'll go to that opacity and say, how much of that do I want to bring in? But it would be maybe something like that. So it's pretty dramatic. I'm gonna flatten. And from here, I will still fine tune it, right? Like when I showed the luminosity masking, this would maybe be a good example of it. If I think that this light across the top of that train is a little bit too bright, I'm going to maybe burn that down here with, let's see here. I'm gonna, and again, I'm being a little bit sloppy here, but I may darken that down a little bit. And again, I'm going to be a little bit more careful with it. Otherwise, to retain some of the color in there, but I took it down too much. I'd still want some of that brightness in there, but I'll do that throughout the image and that, and bring that across. Let's see here, so there. And then, like I say, up there doesn't have all of the color pop, there's not nearly as much orange up there as there is here. And to be honest, it might even be a little bit too overkill on this one.
But it's nice how the sky matches the top of the train. Like that.
Right,
In
right.
your original
Right.
image, the first time you showed it, that's kind of what, like, not only the matte
Mhm.
finish, but like the way that the sky blended well with the top of the train. It didn't look like you had like just totally photoshopped it. It looked like a natural sunset.
Like it could look like that in that
Right.
reflection.
Right, because you have lights and shadows in the right spot. You know?
Right. And some of that is maybe not to the degree that Jessica was doing in terms of like all of those different things in that. But I did pay attention to some of that color and making sure that everything. But you know, to be honest, the preset did most of that for me. And then like I say, that Nick Color Effects Pro, bringing that across, did a little bit more of that for me. And then I really didn't have to do that much other fine tuning. Literally, it was like what you saw there was, you know, Lightroom preset. The big part of that is make sure that you use that color picker on the white balance, and then go to something that has a bluish tone, and then all of a sudden your white balance goes up to, and sometimes it's anywhere from 8,000 to, like I said there, it was like 11,000. So it really warms everything up. And then, yeah, and I'm never one. I don't really use presets very often at all. But this is the one I use just because of this effect. But then even whenever I do that, don't just hit the preset and call it good. Still go and make the adjustments as you know, to bring it to your liking, to make it to where it's to where you like it.
The white building in the center could use a little warming.
Yeah, exactly right. There's some different parts of this here that, like I say, when I did my other image in that, and you know, it did go through and got a merit or whatever and so forth in that through, you know, the PPA system and that. But I did some other things to it to make it look a little bit more realistic. This one kind of looks a little bit out there in terms of kind of to Darren's point. You know, would some of this be that bright when you're looking that direction when your source of light is coming from that other side? So there was some dodging and burning in different areas to try and make it look like the direction of light was more consistent.
Can you show the finished one again?
Yeah, and that one I have up here isn't my finished one. The one that I think where I don't have that.
What's your final version?
The final.
Yeah.
Some of my actually say for real this time.
Yeah. And then I say for real this time 1 or for real this time
Yes,
2.
no, they probably do. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go look at them.
I
I
have
gotta
to go
try
by
it
date
here.
and figure out which one was the last one I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
Here's the one that I did earlier today. Here's the one I did earlier today that I think maybe looks a little bit better again, it looks a little bit better on the screen. I don't have with me the one that was the one that I did before that was my final one.
Can you hit that?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I can do that for sure.
It's so much better on Michael's screen.
On the screen here,
Yeah.
there's a lot more orange. That red pops a little bit more on the Union Station. The range. It's like on this monitor, we've had times where it was like oversaturated, and
Mhm.
somehow it's been adjusted a little bit to where now it's a little bit undersaturated, I think.
I think that's because it was so well in the dark.
Right. So anyways, at least that demonstrates, and I can share a couple things, you know, like I say, one is you know, where I learned it from was when there was a demonstration that we had with one of our Lone Tree meetings, and it was a Zoom only meeting. I think that was when COVID and we couldn't even meet in person. But he did that. He was a architectural photographer out in Florida. And it's interesting. Oh, the other thing I did not do with this one that I would have done also is I would straighten the vertical lines with the, you know, in Lightroom I'll do it, but you know, I'll hit the.
Well, I did find these, and there's the masking and Joe Diaz.
Yeah, that was it. The Joe Castino, I think it is, Street Tones. That's the one that's up there. That's the presets that I think it was like $30 or something like that.
What's his name?
Joe
Joe D'Agostino,
D'Agostino, I think it was.
and then the Good Life of the Mask, the TK Mask.
Sure. Anyways, that was
Thank you, guys. This was very informational.
yeah, and thank you for the help with that. And got the echo going.
Oh, you're unmuted.
Okay.
The tiny model.
Okay. Okay. But again, so again, thank you, Jessica, for coming in tonight, making the trip up here. It's and again, some of the things that she does can translate over to some of the other things that we do over there in our landscape or wildlife. There's some of the wildlife photographers within other groups and that we're associated with that use a lot of those techniques to kind of get that painterly effect on wildlife also, and that is pretty impressive. So there are other applications for all of those things. And to the same extent, that luminosity masking can be used and carried across over to other types of photography also. So. But again, thank you everybody for coming in tonight. Thank you, Jessica, for making the trip up.
Well, thank you for having me.
And so, again, thank you everybody. We've got a really good turnout here tonight. This is a presentation meeting in that we've got, I don't know, probably about 20 something people, I think, something right around in here. And it looks like we've got a really good sized Zoom audience in that too. So thank you all for joining. I know we had people who, thank you, Jessica, for coming up from south of Colorado Springs. We've got some others from south of town and others from obviously the north part of town. Tonight, what we're going to do is, originally we had it. Tonight's meeting was we had Joseph Roybal, who was going to be presenting on landscape editing, landscape photography, post-processing, and then he wasn't able to make it. So we'll try and line something up for him in 2024 and that, and get him back out here. But since it was going to be on post-processing, I talked to Bruce, I talked to a couple others, and that is whether it made sense to still carry forward with a post-processing program, but change it up a little bit in my way, kind of trying to make it interactive in that. So I'm going to do a landscape image or two, and I'll go through kind of the way that I would process those. I'll include Lightroom, Photoshop, a couple of plugins, and then one that I don't know if everybody uses or not, or how many people do, but a little bit of the luminosity masking with the TK actions and that. Not go overboard with that, but at least kind of show a little bit of what those things are capable of. And then the other part of it too is we had when Doug Bennett was giving his presentation on landscape, and he was going through some of the images, and one that he brought up was a portrait that had that painterly look, and that one got some discussion. I know Darren asked a couple questions about it, and since it had a little bit of back and forth commentary and so forth on that, I thought I would ask one of our new members, Jessica Vallia, if she would join us tonight and give a little bit of demonstration, because she knows some of the techniques of how to do that. And there's some things in Photoshop that until I saw she and a couple of others do, I didn't even know those tools existed. So anyways, thank you for coming up here in that.
Thank you for having me.
I do want to go through a couple of our other upcoming events. We've got some other things coming up here. October 4th is exhibition night. So for those who have not participated in those, submit up to 4 images. And then when we meet in person, we'll pull all those images up, and it gives you the opportunity to talk a little bit about the image, why you took the shot, what were your thoughts behind that. And you can also, in a matter of just a couple of minutes in that, discuss any post-processing techniques that you might have used. And let's see, that's October 4th. And it's a real good educational opportunity. I know we've done a couple of those already this year, and every time I go away with some takeaways, not just on my images, but some of the discussion that other people share with theirs. October 18th, we have, kind of staying on the post-processing theme, I guess. But this one actually is, we did this a couple of years ago, where a post-processing event where you submit an image, original out of camera version, and then the final process version, and then describe again some of the techniques that you use to get there. November 1st is our final competition of the year. This one is open. We've had a couple of open competitions this year. We've had a few of the themed competitions. So this is the final one that we have, and so it's open. So I guess anything goes as long as it's appropriate, obviously. But that will be November 1st, so first Wednesday in November. And then we wrap up our presentation meetings this on November 15th with our own Darren White. So that will be November 15th. And I believe that one is shooting techniques in the field and how to put them back together back at home. And he's going to go over basic blends, water blends, a little bit of HDR, focus stacking, and then his expertise in night photography, stacking, and how the stacking process works in night photography and the benefits associated with that. So that is November 15th. Then the very final meeting is December 6th, and that will be the awards dinner. We usually have food as part of that dinner here in the room. And then we also have the elections. So that'll be elections for next year. And that meeting is December 6th, so the first Wednesday in December. Let's see here. I was going to mention a couple of other upcoming events, not necessarily specific to ours. We have a tomorrow night, I got a notice today, the judge that we had from our meeting or our competition last month, Greg Holden, he's doing a presentation with the Base Camp Photo Club, and it's a presentation tomorrow night. There is a fee associated with that, but and his program is going to be on seeing in black and white. I can put something out on the chat in a little bit here and that as far as the discussion of that. And then a couple of other things. Let's see. I guess that's all that we have here with this. I'll go over a couple other things that a couple other clubs have going on here in a second. Real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction of tonight's presenters. One of those is me, but so Jessica Vallia, again, thank you for coming up from Colorado. Yeah.
One announcement.
Yeah.
About the magazine.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you can hear me. We have a magazine we're going to do for the year end with the winning images. Those of you that have images that have won so far this week, got an email from me. Need you to go in and give me some information on the image. The blurb magazines are pretty nice. Charles Lehman brought one in, and they're not bad. And I think it'll be between $10 and $15 a copy. So that you, obviously, if you want to buy it or don't buy it. But we're going to try it this year. Be kind of fun. You get your image. We'll have a little story with all of it if you fill out the form, and see how it goes.
Great.
What's the deadline?
Deadline, I would like to have your information by October 10. And I apologize because we're doing like 5 competitions. If you won each time, like some people had 17 images. I won't mention the person. So they have to spend a lot of time getting it. But next, if everybody likes it, next year it'll be after every competition, you'll have 2 or 3 images to do. It'll be so much less of a task.
Is there some
17.
place where the monthly competition winners are posted, like on our website?
I don't think we have a posting on that. We could do a page.
Yeah, I don't know that historic. I just the other day sent out the ones from the most recent competition.
Right.
We tried to do that on.
You're talking about the
emails.
images.
But as far as
Yeah, I
like
mean,
something
because how,
posted.
like,
Isn't
would
the,
people remember if they won in January?
Well, if there's a link in the form, if
Oh.
you see it, you click on it, and all the images that won are sorted
Oh.
by month and year and
Okay.
date. Yeah, because Jane brought that up. She goes, "Oh, hell, I don't remember."
Oh,
Out of 17 images, I don't remember what I.
right, okay, good.
So many
Bruce?
words. Yes,
Bruce,
Yeah,
Bruce?
yeah, from, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Kathy.
Yeah, we tried to use the link for images on the form. And all we got was a message about browsers. There were no images.
All right, I'll check it. I tested it before, but I'll test it again. And I'll send you a link if it,
I had the same.
just so you'll have a good
So I
link.
started-
Yeah. I
Very
don't have-
good, thank you.
I don't have a link in mind.
You have to go to the form.
So.
Click on the go to form.
Yeah.
It's like the third question down.
Oh, use this link for images?
Does it work?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got it.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send something to you, Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Bruce.
Okay. Speaking of awards, I guess before I go into the introductions of tonight's speakers and that, I'll go ahead and give out some of the awards from, we've got some here from the competition that we just had a couple weeks ago. And then I've got some from before that. I'm going to hand out the ones that were from before that first. We had, let's see, digital monochrome honorable mention advanced, and that is Terry Verbicus with texture of cabbage. Yeah, you have another one here too. Let's see here. And then we also have Terry Verbicus. This was second place, digital color, and that was on lick, smack, and barbecue ribs. So they're cherries. Dave Purcell here tonight, and you have honorable mention for digital color, and that is for got beef. And Dave Purcell also first place on digital monochrome, excuse me, for twist, lick, and dunk. There'll be more here. Now I'm going to go ahead and go through. He wants to make. He wants to get this exercise. So here I'm going to go through. These are the ones that are from the last competition that we had, beginner, intermediate, monochrome. We'll start with the Judges Award and digital monochrome, and this is Bruce Ryman with Contemplation. First place digital monochrome is Jane Richards. More to follow there. Second place digital monochrome is Jane Richards again. Let's see, third place digital monochrome is Carolyn Ryman with Bison Buddies. Sorry, I missed the titles on a couple of them. Let's see. And let's see, honorable mention, and this is Lonely Night by Kathy Vallia. We'll get those out here in a bit. So I'm going to go now to, usually I go different order. There we go. There you go. And tonight we had everybody here from that category anyways. Then while we're on the monochrome, since I started off with that one, let's go right to advanced monochrome. And on that one we have Judges Award, and that is Heading Home by Susan Longer. First place is also Susan Longer, same image, Heading Home. Second place, Dave Purcell, Silent Streets of Whitechapel. Let's see. Third place is Dave Purcell with Misty Midnight Walk. And honorable mention, we have Bruce Norman with Dead Shots. Okay, now we're into the color. Let's go beginner, intermediate color. So we have Judges Award is Kathy Bala with Greek Isle White. First place. Scott Bourne, Rainy Night in Enskilsund. I know I mispronounced that, but that's, again, it was Scott Bourne. Second place, Jane Richards with Aurora's Ribbons. Third place, Jane Richards with Brotherly Competition. Two honorable mentions. Bruce Ryman with Sun Rays. And Dale Ralph with Abandon.
Oh, that's good.
Is it? Oh, yeah, one of them, sorry about that. You're right. One of them, Abandon was one from before, and then Sun Rays was from this last competition. They were just in that same envelope. There you go. Okay, last category. Let's go through, this will be advanced color. Judges Award, Old Woman of Octavio with John Mumford. Is it? Yeah, these are all old.
So this might be the one you need.
Okay.
Okay, Susan,
There must have been two envelopes with the older ones in them. This makes sense. Okay, let's go. Okay, advanced color. Here we go. Judges Award. John McCluskey, Misty Morning. First place. Adorned in Petals, Jessica Vallia. Third place. Second place. Dave Purcell with Ghostly. Third place is Jeff Woodward, Evening on the Farm. And honorable mention, Bruce Norman with Galactic Fire Water Drop Explosion. I think that's it. I think those are all the envelopes I have. Dave Purcell had this one.
these guys aren't here. Oh, well, I think that's. What was Dave Young here?
Dave Purcell is here.
Or- here we go.
Jane, you need an extra bag to carry yours home.
So once again, everybody, thank you for entering in those competitions and that, and congratulations to all the award winners in that. Well deserved.